Are you looking for a fun, engaging, and effective learning language program where you actually learn how to converse in another language? Hi, my name is Phaidra, and I'm the CEO and founder of Greater Empower Tutoring. Let me introduce you to Spanish Explorations. There are so many different programs out there to teach you how to speak Spanish. What makes us different? We actually teach you how to converse in Spanish. Don't believe me? Try it out. Ooh, you want to hear a joke? Okay, here it goes. What do you call a person who speaks many languages? A polyglot. What do you call a person who speaks two languages? Bilingual. What do you call a person who only speaks one language? American. Okay, so if you think that's corny, I'm going to throw my dad under the bus and say I got it from him. It's a certified dad joke. But there is some truth to that joke. And we're here to help get rid of that stereotype of Americans. But not just Americans, anybody who's interested in learning another language starting with Spanish. The purpose of Spanish Explorations is to cultivate cultural awareness and appreciation through learning about different foods, dress, games, and customs of various countries whose primary language is Spanish while learning the basics of Spanish conversation. What are the objectives of this Spanish Explorations that we're going to do? Well, be able to list the 20 countries whose primary language is Spanish, being able to identify them on a globe, learn something interesting about each one of those countries, have a simple conversation in Spanish, recite the Bible verse Matthew 19:14, and learn our theme song. Did you know that there are 20 countries whose official language is Spanish, spanning 4 different continents? Those countries are Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Equatorial Guinea, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Spain, Uruguay, and Venezuela. North Americans, Canadians, Australians, people in the UK, we all speak English and we all pretty much understand each other, but there's slight variations. The same is true for Spanish. All Spanish speakers do not speak the same type of Spanish. Let's watch this video and learn more about that.
¿Qué pasa, tío?
¿Qué lo que, mi pana?
¿Qué bola hacer, eh?
¿Qué la que hay?
¿Qué onda, wey?
¿Qué hubo pues?
Che, boludo, ¿cómo andás? If you don't know the differences between these Spanish greetings, then you definitely need to watch this video. Spanish is the second most spoken language in the world and the official language of 20 countries. And with over 400 million native speakers, it's no surprise that different varieties and accents emerged. Let's take a trip around the globe to explore how people in each Spanish-speaking country take very different approaches to a common tongue. We'll start with a quick history lesson. When Spanish explorers first colonized the Americas, many of them came from a part of southern Spain that spoke the Andalusian variety of Spanish. These immigrants influenced the way Latin Americans spoke Spanish and explained the differences between Latin American Spanish and the Spanish that comes from the northern part of Spain. When we generalize about Spanish from Spain, we're really talking about this northern Spanish, but it's important to know that some regions of Spain speak differently. The first thing you'll probably notice is that northern Spaniards pronounce Z's and C's as a th sound. We actually only do it when the C comes before an I or an E, like in Barcelona.
Hey, how was Barcelona? Sorry, what? Barcelona. I'm not understanding what you're saying. The city you were just in. Oh, you must mean Barcelona. Whatever.
In contrast, Latin Americans and Andalusians pronounce C's, S's, and Z's the same way, which is called ceseo.
Pedro Pérez pesca peces para Paco Paz Jiménez. Para Paco Paz Jiménez pesca peces Pedro Pérez.
Another thing that sets northern Spanish speakers apart is that they tend to use the present perfect tense. He ido al médico esta mañana. Whereas Latin Americans would probably just use the simple past tense. Fui al médico esta mañana. It's kind of like the differences between British and American English. Europeans sometimes add a fancy flourish to their manner of speaking. Another key grammatical difference. Spaniards use vosotros, the plural informal you for casual situations, and ustedes, the plural formal you for formal situations. Latin Americans would just use ustedes for both formal and informal situations. Al final de cuentas, no importa cómo habléis vosotros o cómo hablen ustedes, porque en español todos nos entendemos perfectamente. There is another characteristic that's pretty widespread among Latin Americans as well as among Andalusian Spaniards. They tend to comerse las letras, or eat letters, meaning they don't fully pronounce consonants toward the end of words, particularly B's and D's. Ay, es que estoy muy cansado. ¿De verdad? Ay, sí, me voy a dormir. Chao, pescado. What truly sets Mexican Spanish apart is both its distinct intonation of words and its unique slang. Generally, Mexican Spanish is pretty nasal, and often the tone goes up and it's thrown out toward the end of the sentence. ¿Qué onda, carnal? ¿Nos vamos a comer una pizza después del trabajo? No manches, ahorita voy a comerme unos taquitos bien chidos. Mexicans use a lot of slang words you won't hear in other Spanish-speaking countries. For instance, neta means truth or really, and güey means man or dude. Pues ya dime la neta, güey. ¿Te está gustando este video? People often say Cubans, for example, sound like they're speaking Spanish with a potato in their mouth. It's a wide, breathy pronunciation. Oye, chico, en la vida que tomase todo con calma, menos la cerveza, porque se calienta. Cubans and other people from Caribbean countries have a tendency to shorten words when speaking. For instance, they may say pa instead of para and to instead of todo. A nasal N is also very common, so if at a restaurant you order arroz con frijoles, the pronunciation of con would be more similar to Kong, as in King Kong. Argentina and Uruguay share one of the most distinct Spanish varieties, sometimes called Rioplatense Spanish. Instead of pronouncing the double L, like Y, Argentines and Uruguayans pronounce it as sh, a phenomenon called yeísmo. Me parece fenomenal que nos vayamos a comer un pollito relleno al horno. If you visit Buenos Aires, you may be confused at first because it might sound like everyone's speaking Italian. Well, they're not. But Argentine Uruguayan Spanish was influenced by the Italian immigrants who moved to the area in the 20th century. Those who speak it often have a sing-song intonation and talk a lot with their hands. While it's not an accent-related difference, people in this region also use vos instead of tú as a second-person pronoun. Called voceo, it's also used in Central American countries as well as Paraguay, parts of Bolivia and Colombia. Vos me podés decir si está lloviendo cuando salgas. Yo no creo que vaya hoy a ningún lado, boludo. Finally, this region has a wide array of slang terms that you won't hear anywhere else, like che for man or bárbaro for awesome. Che, ¿me podés decir la hora? Son las 4:10. Bárbaro, gracias, che. De nada, che. Colombians have their own slang too, like chévere meaning cool, and they say pues a lot, which means well. Oiga pues, ¿vos crees que puedo traer a mi novia a la playa? Hágale parce, todo chévere, que aquí cabemos todos. There are so many differences between Spanish accents and varieties, we can't possibly cover them all. But the main thing to keep in mind is that, just like an American visiting the UK or Australia, Spanish speakers all speak the same language and will mostly be able to understand each other. However, there are certain manners of speaking or specific slang words that may take them by surprise. So, which variety of Spanish should you learn? Think about your reason for learning and which variety you're most likely to come into contact with. ¿Neta?
Pero Jesús dijo, dejad a los niños venir a mí, y no se lo impidáis, porque de los tales es el reino de los cielos.
¿Cuántos en el mundo están? No le importa tu color, a Jesús el Salvador. Cristo ama a los niños por doquier. Cristo ama a los niños. Sí, de todo corazón. Guatemala, Ecuador, Puerto Rico, El Salvador. Cristo ama a los niños por doquier. Cristo me ama, bien lo sé, su palabra me hace ver que los niños son de aquel quien es nuestro amigo fiel.
Cristo me ama, Cristo me ama, Cristo me ama, la Biblia dice así.
Cristo me ama pues murió y el cielo me abrió. Él mis culpas quitará y la entrada me dará.
Cristo me ama, Cristo me ama, Cristo me ama, la Biblia dice así. Cristo ama
A los niños por doquier, Argentina, Uruguay, Costa Rica y Paraguay. Cristo ama a los niños por doquier. Cristo ama a los niños por doquier.
Remember at the beginning that we said that there were 20 countries whose primary language is Spanish and that they're spread out across 4 different continents? Let's look a little closer at that. Spain is located on the continent of Europe. Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Paraguay, Peru, Uruguay, and Venezuela are all located on the continent of South America. Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, and Panama are all on the continent of North America. If you were counting, you would know that that's 19 countries. There's one more country we haven't mentioned, and it's surprisingly on the continent of Africa. That country is Equatorial Guinea. Bet you didn't know that. So let's recap what we've gone over in this lesson. We've listed the 20 countries whose primary language is Spanish. We identified them on the map, also identifying which continents they're located on. We learned something interesting about the 20 countries. We recited or we listened to our memory verse, and we also listened to our theme song. Buen trabajo. Good job today. See you in the next lesson.